Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Mama Genius Hub podcast. And we just switched things up, fly of the moment, because that's how I roll. Is we're having Liz on here today from Raising Flora. And the last episode I did with her was actually a joint episode. So we thought, you know what? We're going to turn this into a live podcast episode. But though, if you do have questions, feel free to throw them in there. But you're watching what's going to be live soon on rolling out onto your local podcast shortly. And so I'm just going to start by introducing Liz, as I'm going to move her bio in front of me so I don't look like I'm psycho. But Liz Vivian is trained in the I can't say that word today. Can you help me?
Menstruality.
Thank you. I've been talking too much.
You're all good.
FEMM educator in training and mom. Through her business, Raising Flora, she helps moms get their tweens ready for their first periods. Mine's on the way. Passionate about giving their tweens a healthy, positive start with their cycle, she knows moms are in a powerful position to lead the way towards a less shamey and more open and meaningful experience. Liz and her husband are raising a daughter who is 12 and stretching the family who loves to travel. Stretching towards independence. They
Yes.
are a knit family who loves to travel, outdoorsy adventures, and good food. I am so happy to have you on here. Every time we talk, I just feel like so joyful and I get such good ideas, especially as my daughter's the 10-year-old emerging into that realm of preteen. And I'm like, ah!
Yep. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. First, thank you for having me. And second, that feeling that you're having is totally normal. It's really common. Like we all have that undercurrent of like, for so many reasons. And we can talk more about why and what to do about it and how to support your tween. Yeah, but you're normal.
Sometimes it doesn't feel that way.
Oh, I know. And yeah, we don't talk about our periods. This is a taboo topic. We don't talk about it, and so we don't have a lot to go by. And we forget that we're all normal and that we all have these experiences and we want something better for our daughters, but we don't have a lot to go by. And this is still a taboo topic. And we get that feeling also because we feel like this is big. Like I hear a lot from moms, oh, either I'm dreading my daughter's puberty or I want to be a good mom for all these big growing up moments, but I don't really know how to navigate this. Or like I just feel like, ugh, and
Yes.
like it feels big. And so a lot of moms will, talk to me in a consultation or a class and they'll say like, oh, I have questions. How do I support my daughter? What do I need to know? And we can be very pragmatic about it. And then there's always a moment where, a mom is like, well, I don't want to make this all about me, but I have a lot of feelings about this. And I'm like, of course you do. This is big. It's a big moment. It's a big moment. And so no wonder it feels big.
And you're right, though, because it is the stigma with it. I mean, we always just said I'm on the rag, or like you hid it and you're like trying to make sure these huge, gigantic pads you were carrying in high school, like you're hiding them. Even though I went to an all girls school, I did go to an all girl high school, but you're still trying to like hide that fact when you're in the period. And what was it? I was, in my Facebook group, there was actually some countries saying that they are not allowed to go to school when the girls are on their periods.
Yeah.
And like just the stigma we put on each other saying like, this is something bad that's happening to us.
Yeah. And our girls feel that. I mean, we're all swimming in the culture that we're in. So going against that, to be more open, to reflect on your own experiences so that you're ready to lead your daughter can be so helpful, because approaching this moment of our own daughter's first period, it takes us back to ours. And all of our experiences, exactly what you're describing, whether our own experiences were like comfortable or horrible or meh or ignored, like whatever it was, we go back to those experiences. And if we can make meaning of our own experiences and we can like feel those feelings, then we don't carry that forward to our daughter, we can show up with self-compassion. We can show up with gentleness. We can maybe show up with humor. We can show up with self-awareness. And all of those mama mindsets are so helpful parenting our tweens and teens through this experience. But it really starts with like, it's okay to know that it feels big. There is something in this experience of our daughter that like cracks something open in us where we're like, oh yeah, I knew it was big. And now I feel that it's big. Why does it feel so big? Well, because it's a big moment in our lives. And I think we also, it kind of takes us to a bittersweet mama moment where we're like, oh, my girl is growing up. And we want to feel supportive and loving in those moments. And we also feel sad. And sometimes we don't want to feel sad. We want to just like push through it. And so we kind of then again go to that pragmatic pads or tampons.
Yeah.
What do I give her? How do I help her manage the days she bleeds? As opposed to like if we took a bigger picture understanding of like, how do I shepherd her through this big growing up moment in a way that helps her feel connected to herself, in a way that builds her confidence, and in a way that helps her understand, like start to understand, because it's going to take years, what it means to live with a cycle, not just how do we manage the days that we bleed. And like that's our opportunity as moms, is to shepherd our daughter through this process, to lead her through this process, versus like giving her products, which is certainly something we need to do. But that's,
well, I love how you said cycle though, because like that just kind of popped something into my head when you were like saying the word cycle. It's like I didn't even think about, but it's like it is this rhythm of learning how your body works. And sometimes I feel like I don't even know. And as you were talking, I'm trying to think like I don't even remember exactly when I got my first period, or like it's like this blank spot in my head. And I know some people know the day or what, and so like I don't for her, I just want something where it's not like, at least it's not this dark black hole of something like, and she's already fighting on wearing a training bra or anything. Like it's already that fight in there. Like, why is this going to happen to me? Like already like that fight ready to come out as my light's about to fall off, because, you can feel the tension.
yes.
And I want to kind of find a way to alleviate that, but I don't know how.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we can have a whole other conversation about your experience. I am happy to do that, because that's part of what I help people do, is to reflect and find our own approach to this.
Mhm.
And, in terms of having our cycle, we're just not the same every day. And if we can help our daughters understand that we have, rising energy and falling energy, we're not taught about our hormones, really. We're not taught about our inner seasons. And so if we can do that and just give them some basic tools for understanding what's happening in their body, that can help them learn what's normal. It can help them learn their own strategies for managing. And for so many of us moms, we're just like, oh, it's hard. Cramps are hard. Leaks are hard. Things are hard about it. And that's all true. And also, in my experience, we can find a way to know ourselves better, and the beauty in experiencing our whole cycle and taking advantage of the parts of our cycle that feel really easy to us, where things work smoothly, come naturally. Like we all have those, like that sense in our body of where in our cycle that's happening. And so there are things we can share with our daughter, and we can model what self-care looks like throughout our cycle, when we need to rest, when we feel like going for a bike ride, when we feel like talking, when we feel more introverted. And if we can give her that self-compassion, like that's a huge gift to give to our tweens and teens.
There's like, as you're talking, there's always like one key word that just pops in my head. And this time it was the word hard, because that's the way, like we always, like, at least I felt like it was always defined, like when you get your period, like that's hard. And that's like something you don't want. And it's like negative and all these negative aspects towards it. And I feel like we have that same thing where we're like, let's give them a little purse or something where they can hide it all. And like, this is a secret. Like, you don't want people to know when this is happening. And then if your husband's or whatever for you, it's like, oh, you're PMSing, right? Like, that's like they put that on you. And then there's this whole like negative connotation with everything to do with the period, everything to do with the days you're bleeding, and the word hard just like was just pulsating in my head as you were talking.
Yeah. I mean, this is the culture that we all live in every day. And it's still in me. Like, I do this professionally to sort of help our next generation have a more open, positive, healthy, meaningful connection to their cycle. And there was one time I was talking to my daughter who's been cycling for almost a couple of years now. And I whispered to her in the hallway, "Oh, do you have tampons or pads? Like, do you have what you need?" And she goes, "Why are you whispering?" And I was like, "Well, because Dad's right there." And she's like, "It's just Dad. I have my period. It's okay." And I was like, "Oh my God, even me." Like, we are all in this. And I had to stop and go, "Yeah, of course." And he's a great dad and he's learning a lot and he's understanding a cycle. And, with men, there can be this opportunity where their daughters help them learn something that as partners and wives, they are not going to learn it from us. There can be a special moment. And, I have seen this where my husband would say, "Oh, do you need a banana?" That was like code for like, "I feel like your period's coming. Like, do you need a banana?" Like, I know that's a thing that is helpful. And that's true. That can be very helpful. Um, but now I will say more like, it's okay. She's just in her premenstruum. It's just her luteal phase. It just is normal as opposed to negative. Like, maybe we're a little bit more introverted. Maybe we have less patience. Those things are normal. And if we think of them as just the truth of the situation, as opposed to like, "Oh, that's hard," then like our mindset can change. And then we can help our daughters understand that's normal. And so, what's the self care that you need in that moment versus like stuffing it down and showing up on day 26 the way you felt on day 12? Like, that's not helpful. So,
I love that how you say like stuffing down because I feel like that. And it's so like in terms of the self-care, then it's like having that proactive ideas of what things are going to help me with
yeah,
those days because they're coming.
yeah,
But it doesn't mean I have to stop everything. And then I'll be able to, if I know, have those tools handy, or if I need candles, or if I need like extra
yeah,
certain foods or something on that day, like they're there.
yeah.
Because you're pre-planning and being proactive rather than reactive. And I think that is it. When we're more reactive to all these things, that's when we are more irritable, though. But if we're like proactively, like, okay, well, this is just a rest day for me. Like,
Right.
I'm going to suck it up and pamper myself today. Big problem.
Right, exactly. And if you know that your day, 26 or 27, you get cramps, have your heating pad, have your cup of tea that works, have whatever helps you move through that moment. Lay down for 20 minutes with heat on high, and then go back to it. And sometimes those little shifts are so helpful. But when we push through and demand of ourselves that we don't care and cover it up and pretend it's not happening, it just makes it harder and it makes the actual physical pain harder. And then we can like move into the next phase of our cycle with a little moment of peace. And then you can help your daughter figure that out too. Like, is that an afternoon where she just wants to color or read by herself? Or is she feeling like she needs extra sleep? Sometimes extra water can be really helpful for relieving pain. We can figure all of that out. Like, hard does not have to be normal. And I don't want to be Pollyanna. I worry people are listening and like, "Oh, isn't that all nice to say?" But there are like small shifts that really do start with our own reflection and our own mama mindset that then carries through to the actions that we can take if we're driven by being self-aware and self-compassionate and compassionate and gentle and intentional, then we can start to take those actions, and they really will make a difference in our daughter's experience and her whole lifetime of bleeding. If we can give her like support, intentional empowerment and support in those first couple of years is so meaningful.
Okay, I swear as you're talking, one like just thing just keeps circling in my head, but it's like as you were describing the cycle, it's like a metaphor for everything that we do. Is our body telling us that
Yes.
we need to rest or we need to do these things. We need self-care. And it's like our body naturally doing that for us. And as you're
Yes.
saying that, it's like we give ourselves a hard time, like, no, I can't rest. I have to keep pushing on. I need to keep pushing it down. And I mean, that's why we're even here. Why I even started this podcast was that feeling of like, I want more, but nope, I got to keep pushing that down. I'm not allowed to have that. I got to put all my time into that over there, nothing
Yes.
for me. And
Yes.
yet then the irritableness of everything, the pain was worse. The cramps are worse when we do that.
Yes.
When we don't like just sit into them. And
Yes.
and I feel like that's exactly what this is. And I mean, it's the same thing with being in your genius, because when you are exploring things that you love to do, it flows. Literally
Yes.
flows.
Like literally, yes.
Yes.
Yes. And you know, one analogy that I think can be so helpful to understand, and I think is then something we can all share with all the kids in our life, particularly our daughters as they're approaching their first period, is to think about a flower seed. So we see the changing of the seasons right now. Like I know we're probably both in parts of the country where there's like leaves are changing and falling and that kind of thing. But you know, there is a time where a seed is dormant, and that is like our inner winter. Like the trees are quiet. This little seed is putting down roots and gathering energy. And that's our own inner winter. That's when we have our period. We are quiet because it's like nutrition for ourselves to have that moment. And then spring comes and our little flower like pokes up and is like gently growing and just starting to come to life. That's like our follicular phase. It's our inner spring. And we start to feel that in our body. And then our flower blooms. We've got a big, beautiful dahlia, a big field of flowers. All the trees are like full of leaves. And that's like our inner summer, which is our ovulation. It's the exact opposite of our rest. It is when we are like accomplishing and getting things done. We're accommodating. Those are the moments where, as moms in particular, we feel like we are managing it all. We're like, I do this, I do this, I do this. I'm happy. Things are flowing. And then post ovulation, we move into our luteal phase. And that is like our inner autumn, where the leaves are falling off. Our flower is starting to compost. Resources are being drawn back in. The leaves are falling off. We're harvesting. We're learning. That's a very creative editing time for a lot of people. And we're getting ready to go back into our bleed and our inner winter. There is no, like, trees don't just like bloom all the time. There is a life cycle for 99.9% of everything living on Earth. And we are part of that. And we have that cycle. And if we can work in cooperation with that cycle versus pushing through all the time, we might all have a favorite part of our cycle and a part that comes naturally, like that just feels really good and healthy and productive for us. And we might want every day to feel like that, but that's not the reality of how we were made. And so the more we can understand that flow and picture the seed to the bloom to like full bloom to composting, or the trees and the way the leaves come and then they go back and the roots are nourished by everything that falls, we can think of our premenstruum not as like the horrible, bitchy, crabby, cramp-filled time, but like we're harvesting, we're composting, and we're getting ready to nourish our roots with some rest. And then we're going to come back and bloom again. And we're going to do that over and over and over again. There's a lot of opportunity in that.
To take advantage of the bloom part, then when you know it's coming, like to plan around it.
Yes.
And then make sure that you're flourishing in your creativity when you're doing it. If we start to understand more rather than, like you said, trying to just push through, but then helping that with our daughter. So I have to ask you. So
Yeah.
your daughter, when your daughter started hers, like how did that? Were you doing this before this, or did that inspire this? And how did that go for you, the two of you?
Yes. Okay. So let's see. I have been wanting to do this. Like you talk about genius and passion, and like I have felt pulled to make periods normal for the past number of years. And I have been figuring out like what does that actually mean? And I think as I was approaching in my menopause journey, I knew my daughter's first period was coming. I really wanted to focus on a life transition. And I just feel called to the girls. Like I just want healthy whole girlhood for all of our girls, like feels so important. So I decided to focus there. And I mean, I did test things out with my daughter. And I have professional training as a menstruality mentor and a fertility and reproductive health educator. So for me, it really has been a combination of training and then also life experience. So I was on a walk with my daughter. Sometimes we like to have conversations looking at each other, and sometimes in the car on a walk can be really helpful. I
Mhm.
said, so you're in, and I will preface this with like, I've been really open. Like, I have a kid who at 3 was like, can I unwrap the tampons? What's going on? And so I would answer age appropriately all along. So I said, so your first period's probably coming in the next year or so. How do you feel about that? And she was sort of like, yeah, I feel good. Do you have any questions? She probably asked me some questions. And I said, well, how do you want to mark that moment? What feels important to you? And she said,
Mhm.
I want a blanket like you have your blanket because I need a reminder to rest. And so I have like the softest, fluffiest blanket. And I only ever use that when I have my period.
I
So it's
love that.
a reminder to just like snuggle up, whether that's 5 minutes by myself or like on my bed overnight, like being cozy and resting. I need that reminder. So I was like, great, we'll get you a blanket. And then I said, well, do you want any kind of a gathering? Do you want a party? Do you want something else like with community to celebrate your first period? And she was like, no, but I want a cake. I said, okay, we will have a special dinner and we will have a cake. And so then, like, time passed. We had sort of talked about it a little bit. And then all of a sudden, her period came, and I was kind of surprised. Like, I hadn't ordered the blanket, we hadn't gotten like all the things figured out. And so, I want to give people a lot of permission for letting go of perfectionism and like just showing up as your favorite self in the moment of who you want to be. And so then we ordered a cake. She wanted it to say happy flow. I picked that up from the bakery. We do a lot of baking in our family, but she wanted this very specific cake. And I was like, yes, we will do that. So I picked it up from the bakery and they were like, that's so cute. You know, it had little macarons on top and it said happy flow. Um, and and then it's been a lot of answering questions because sometimes our daughters don't know what to ask us until they're having their own experiences. And then they want to know and test out different pads. And then, oh, what are tampons and how do I do that? And, oh, well, what could we track? So I've also tried helping her track her cycle and just sort of know and feel what's happening on different days. What is she noticing about her body? Is she noticing patterns? We all start to establish a pattern.
Yeah.
You know, what does she need? And how do I, as a parent, shift to being a coach? Because there was a day with our kids where we would like lead them through their hygiene. You're taking a bath, you're brushing your teeth. I'm helping you do this. And first periods come at a time where they're like, stop directing my life. So it's been like a really joyful, challenging experience to like help her through moments that don't feel easy and when there's a soccer game on day 1 or 2 and there's not a ton of energy, but like that's when that Saturday falls, then what do you do before that? And how do you take care of yourself? And what can you do on those other days where you want like the whole group of friends versus just one friend? So
Yeah.
so that's a little bit about our story. And it's been really like sweet in a way. And I will say, I am in like my months of my menopause journey. Like her cycle is starting just as mine is ending. And I'll just add that like both of our brains are under construction. Like I'm in menopause and she's in puberty. And these are 2 times in our life, those 2 times plus after giving birth, becoming a mother, where your brain is literally rewired.
Yeah.
And I feel like a house under construction. Sometimes the
Well, your
same
whole body too.
your whole body. That's right. And so we're both in that together. And that's a very interesting experience as a parent to say to her, like, yeah, I know you told me something, but I can't remember because like I'm just not remembering things the way I used to. And you know what? Neither is she. I can say it's time to get out the door, do shoes, teeth, and backpack. She'll do one thing and then be like hanging out, like she's ready to go. And I'm like, oh, there were 2 more things. So how do I say that gently? Yeah, it's a journey of like gentleness as a parent to mother a daughter through this.
So I'm going to have to circle and ask a practical question because I'm sure I'm not the only mom thinking this.
Yeah.
But I know I have 2 swimmers on my hands. So
Yes.
tampons are going to be the first question. I wouldn't even know how to even brace that but it's going to have to be a quick reality if they want to keep swimming.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yes, that is true. And so I think, like in your own mind, in your own experiences, what are you comfortable with? What kind of a coach do you want to be for your daughter where she's testing things out about her body? Are you going to be in the bathroom with her? Are you going to be outside the bathroom door? Are you going to be not involved at all? There are, tiny tampons, both applicator and non-applicator, and both are absolutely worth trying. There is no biological reason that girls cannot use tampons from day 1. It has to do with what they're comfortable with and what you're comfortable with, and whether they are using an applicator tampon or a non-applicator tampon. They're going to have to be comfortable touching their vulva and knowing their vagina and understanding how to like figure their body out in a way that none of us can teach them. Like, it's
Right.
not like, oh, here's how you put on a watch or here's how you tie your shoes. It's very intimate. They have to feel comfortable with that. And so, there are tiny tampons that are like pinky sized that you want to try the smallest. And one of the big things to remember about tampons is that, and this can be really helpful to look at like a side diagram of our body. All of us who have used tampons have learned this. Tampons go back, not up. And so as they're figuring things out, there can be pain, there can be discomfort, and helping them like learn and try. And it might take a couple of years of trying to get to the point where they're like, oh, I'm comfortable with my body. Because again, we started at the beginning, we're talking about women's bodies and all the things we're not taught. They have to like start to feel comfortable in that mode and then figure out like what works for their body. But once they figure that out, like so much opens up, like you said. The same is true for using a cup, which is reusable, or a disc. I think disc is like masterclass in how to use something like that. There are cups that are made for teen size bodies. But to fold them, you sort of fold the opening to insert it is still like fairly big. And then it kind of pops in and it's medical grade silicone. So it's just going to be comfortable in your body. But the insertion is, the size of 2 or 3 tampons. And sometimes that takes older
Yeah.
girls and more time.
I don't think I would. I don't think I'd be personally ready to show that. But I'm like, I'm glad we're having this conversation because I can feel my body just kind of already like repulsing some of the. So I'm sure I'm not the only mom out there. So I feel like the more we have these conversations, the more that we're open about it. Like it's like I feel it releasing a little bit. Like okay, like some of the fears, like okay, I can work through this. I can do this. Like it's starting to release because we're having this conversation.
Yes.
So like it's so important to do this and not feel like we're in this alone. And that's why I love like those of you like who need the support. Liz is great at this and like we're in this and like I just feel like I don't remember any of it. Like I mean I don't remember like I do actually remember trying to use a tampon and I could not get it for life for me for the longest time.
Yes.
And like wanting to go swimming so bad and
Yes.
couldn't go swimming because I wanted to go swimming. And I'm like, I
Yes.
have 2 swimmers on my hands as of right now that who knows if they still will be, but they want to continue swimming. It's something that they will have to figure out. And so like just that whole feeling, I was like, I don't want it to be like this unknown pressure thing. So like having these conversation with you opens it up. And so like I know I didn't necessarily have those conversations with my mom, but making sure I have those with my daughters so that they do have questions, they want to figure it out, that I'm here to be supportive to that. And all of a sudden, like having just saying all that right now, I can feel the release from my stomach right now, like, okay, I got out. And I think that's the power of having these deep conversations. And so that's why I'm on that note, well, this is a live podcast. This will be a recorded podcast at the time. It's also live right now, so I'll edit this later. But those of you that are listening live now, there's the women's circles tomorrow night, and that's what this is all about: is having these deep conversations and getting these feelings inside of us out and releasing them, and thinking, what are we scared of? What are the things that are holding us back from finding our genius? Because that's what this really comes down to: is like helping our daughters explore their genius, but then also realizing that we need to explore ours to model that for them.
Yes.
Because if they don't see someone living in their genius, they don't really see that model. They don't see the possibilities of it if we're not doing it together. Just like you said, you're going through the 2 different phases, you and your daughter in different phases, but you're like, it keeps that symmetry almost of like in our experiences of how we're doing these things together.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And like we did not grow up being taught about this. So even just like I am somebody you can ask me anything. And like I'm comfortable saying vulva and like our girls have to figure these things out. But that is not our culture. That's not the way we were raised. That takes effort. That takes learning. That is part of my genius, is like I will be comfortable in these conversations to give everybody else permission to let go of mom perfectionism because we want to like get the perfect product so she never suffers. And that's not possible. Who among us has not had a leak? We have those challenges. So if we can have the mindset of self-compassion and grace and humor and gentleness, that is so helpful. If we can like make meaning of our own experiences and have those feelings where we're like, oh, I feel sad my girl is growing up. If we can move through those things versus like stuffing it down and hiding our tampons, like we have been taught our whole life, we can show up as like our whole self and as the mom we want to be so that she has the possibility to learn these things.
I love that so much. On that note, I think we're going to ask you our 5 questions since we're turning this one into a podcast.
Great.
So all the moms that are coming on are getting these questions. So number 1 for you, Liz, share your favorite book or resource that has had a significant impact on your journey as a mama.
I'm going to say the book Untangled by Dr. Lisa D'Amour. I highly recommend it. There are tools and analogies and resources in there which help me daily as a parent. And it also reminds me that like I'm normal in parenting a teen. Like this is normal. My kid is normal. And we're just like shifting the way we work together in our family. So Untangled, I think the world of it, it's been super helpful. I recommend it.
I love that. I haven't heard of that one yet. So
Yeah. Oh,
I have to add that to my list.
yeah. It's
And we'll have
about
to create,
animals. Yeah.
I think with another podcast that like all the books are recommended, they create a site on their website. So I think I'm going to eventually do that. Is like all these books are being recommended, put them in one spot for everyone.
Brilliant. Yes. I mean, I want to see everybody else's recommendations.
Right.
Yeah. We all
And
need.
actually the last two have actually been the same book. The first two are the same book, Conscious Parenting by Dr. Shivali,
Oh,
which is a
okay.
good one. But I was almost laughing because it was the exact same book
Oh,
on the first two. So that was the first two episodes of doing that. So number two for you,
yeah.
what is a special family tradition or ritual that brings joy and connection to your household? Because I actually preface this leading into the holidays is that sometimes we do things that we don't necessarily find joyful, but they are just rituals or tradition. That we just keep thinking we have to do. So what's one you enjoy doing?
Yeah. We eat dinner together every day. Every day. And we love it. And, sometimes it's a very simple weeknight meal. Sometimes it's something in the slow cooker. Sometimes it's a collaborative effort. And sometimes it's me or my husband, like just getting food on the table. But we work around people's schedules. And like, that is one of the things that we are committed to. And I think for me, it gives us an opportunity for our daughter to chat about the things she wants to chat about. We don't have to quiz her. Like, what was
Yeah.
this? How was math? How are friends? All the things about a day. It's just, we're together. We all have to eat dinner. And so it's an opportunity for her to share some things and to say, yeah.
That is one thing we try to do as often as possible, but with three in different directions is not always. But they do appreciate and know that is. And number three, I love because I had given you a preview of
Oh,
these.
yes. Okay.
I am opening up the conversation. I've been saying I'm answering the question of how are you? Because we usually just answer, I'm so busy, blah, blah, blah. So I want to get rid of it and I'm struggling to do it myself. So I want some new, fresh ideas on how to release the busyness.
Okay. Well, I would say I have a few years ago, let go of saying I'm busy because I realized that when I said that, it did not feel good to say I'm busy.
Agreed.
We get a lot of affirmation in our culture, though, for accomplishing. And we get a lot
Mhm.
of affirmation for having a lot on our plate and being the duck that's like paddling and shaking it all off. And so it's no wonder that that's what we say because accomplishment and having a lot on our plate and doing is so highly valued. So if we can stop and say, okay, is this person really asking? Like, does this person really want to know how I feel? So I have two answers that I give, and it kind of depends on my relationship with that person. Um, if it's somebody I don't know well, and I think they're just asking me, but I purposefully don't want to talk about doing, I want to talk about my being. How am I? I say, I'm really well. I have
Mhm.
a lot going on. And like, here's a highlight. I will sort of say
Ooh,
one
here's a
other
highlight.
little tidbit of like, here's a highlight. If it is somebody who I feel like I can be really authentic with, I'm talking to somebody where I know they're like genuinely asking me how I am, I will answer truthfully how I am. And I will just like stop and take a moment. I mean, I don't know, probably a lot of you and a lot of people who are listening like have their daily practice where you're checking in with yourself. So I have a sense of who I am and how I'm feeling on a particular day. And I will just answer. And sometimes people are like, oh, you're really frustrated, or oh, you're crabby, oh, you're sad, oh, you're
Mm.
happy, whatever all those words are. And like, here are my 3 words of how I am today. Sometimes that opens a conversation, and sometimes people are like, yeah, okay, I'm fine. We move on in the conversation. But
Yeah,
two things, either like I'm well or like authentically how I am.
I love that. Number four, describe what genius means to you and how do you feel when you're in your genius?
Ooh, okay. Genius to me feels like a deep knowing, like like it's something that feels so solid. It's like the Oprah's "What I Know for Sure." moments, like I just, like I know it and I feel it. Feels like genius. And when I'm feeling in my genius, like it's that flow feeling where you're like, oh, everything is working because this is what I know I'm supposed to be doing. And I'm like offering something that is meaningful to me to offer, and it's meaningful to the world and to other people, other moms. That feels like genius. It's like what you're saying about everything you're launching right now. Like, it's like feeling powerful and effortless at the same time because you're so solid. That's what it means to me. Solid.
I love how flow has been such a theme of our conversation today.
Yeah,
Many different different
always.
ways to use the words. We're using them all today. And your last question. How do
Yes.
you encourage your child to
Yeah.
explore their skills or their genius?
Well, I'm going to say number one, I show up. So I have a child who likes to do a lot of different things, likes to figure things out. And I think we've just said yes. Like, oh, can I do this? Yes. Can I try out for that next soccer team? And in the back of our mind, we're like, oh my God, what does that mean for our family? We're like, yes. And then we'll figure out how to support her to do that. And so we are down a whole new soccer journey this year. And it's been exciting because it's so meaningful to her. Or like baking. It's something we love
Mm.
to do in our family. And our daughter a few years ago was like, I'd like to have my own money. How could I do that? I'm too young to babysit. What do I want to do? And she's like, so I was thinking about it and I would like to have a baking business. I would like to sell baked goods because I feel like I could actually do that. And then it's not asking for an allowance. And we just looked at each other like, yeah, okay, yes. So that means like we chat about what she wants to sell, and she's just wrapping up her business because she's ready to do other things. But it's been a lot of yes. Yes, I will go to Costco and get butter for you. Yes, I will drive you to deliver all over town where you've said you're going to deliver goodies. So to
Yes.
me,
Yes.
it's been very action oriented. It's been just like, how can I say yes to this thing that she wants to do? And how does like saying yes mean I show up with my action?
I love that. You just put in words what I've been doing with my kids. I just never had put in those words before because even like when you said like when they decided to do soccer, I said yes, and then I coached their team and I coached Bella's first, only one season and she ever did, and then Lily wanted to do it, so I was like, okay, well, I can do it. I made the mistake of thinking Lily was going to go into the K4 kindergarten one, like the first one, like I did Bella. No, she was already in first grade. I'm like, oh my God, I actually have soccer players on this team. What the heck am I going to do?
Yeah.
But then I figured it out. It was all right. My husband did help with a couple practices on that one. But
I
again,
love
it's
it.
figuring it all out and just diving in there. Well, I just want to thank you so much for coming on here, Liz, and joining our podcast and showing us your genius, inspiring us to have these conversations about flow.
Yes.
And tell us how we can get a hold of you if moms are in the lurch and want some one-on-one time or some group work, or tell us what you have.
Yeah, absolutely. So everybody can come to raisingflora.com where I have information about classes, women's gatherings, one-on-one personal consultations where you can literally ask me anything. And we can talk about, whether it's your own reflection, whether it's pragmatic tools and resources you need, whether it's how to move from your one mindset to another mindset, and how to coach your child. So that's what I do. You can find me at raisingflora.com. I'm also on Instagram a little bit. I'm just starting to figure that out. So you can find me at Raising Flora, and there are links in bio there to get to a really beautiful first period kit tip sheet that I put together, which is sometimes a very helpful starting place because you want to kind of like get ahead. I will also add that I do a lot of work with moms whose daughters already started their period. So there is a getting ready kind of mode that I think is really valuable. And then also people come to me where they're like, wait, I thought I was ready, but it's not like in the book. What do I like? I need more help. So I'm also very available for that of like, how do you show up? Because we all have the child that we have. And there are lots of great resources, but my work is to help you, you know yourself and your tween best. And I come alongside with the resources and the community and the coaching and the permission that you need. That's what I do.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, Liz. And I just want to leave with the message of getting into your genius and helping your daughters figure out their cycles will help them understand their genius better. And again, those of you listening live, come join us for the Women's Circle tomorrow night. And I'll edit this stuff out of the podcast part. But if you're listening now, come join us tomorrow night. And don't forget that I also have courses on half off right now for launch week. A couple on the website. Those are all the links are in down below. And we'll see you all next time. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.